Greetings, citizens. Hey you beautiful creepy human being you. Welcome to my channel and welcome to today's morbid makeup video. I'm so happy we could meet like this. I'm so happy that somehow in all of this crazy little thing that we call life, in all of this, somehow today you and I were able to find each other on this crazy little planet that we call home. My name is Brittany or Bratterstein, whichever you prefer, and today we're going to be discussing the tragic murder of 28-year-old Jennifer Rothwell. She was a woman who was pregnant and made the chilling Google search shortly before she was murdered, and that search was, quote, "What to do if your husband is upset you are pregnant." But before we get started, if you have not yet had the pleasure, please make sure to join the Brat Pack by subscribing and ringing that bell. I put out a new video every single week, and I would love to hang out with you. Yes, you, specifically you, but I can only do that if you join the Brat Pack and become one of us. One of us, one of us, one of us. And you can also follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook if you want. They are all Bratterstein, but no pressure. So now that I'm done begging you to join my cult, we can get into this video. Now this video is going to be on a case that I had actually never heard of before. I just kind of came upon my computer screen somehow, whether it be like on the sidebar while I was looking into another case or in a Facebook group, I'm not really sure. But once I started looking into it, I found myself just completely engrossed in this case, and it's just so sad. Not just Jennifer's murder, but the weeks leading up to her murder. It broke my heart to read about, and then when I started looking into the case, like online, I also found that there was basically no coverage on YouTube, which blew my mind because it's the kind of case that really got under my skin. So basically, Jennifer had just found out that she was pregnant. And this was a situation that for a lot of people, especially people in her position, people who are happily married, people who are in love, married couples, this was something that should have been a very, one, stressful and terrifying time for her to learn that information, because it's a lot to learn that you have a person growing inside of you, but also it's supposed to be a beautiful and joyous time because this was a baby that she desperately wanted, and she was under the impression her husband desperately wanted, but instead of being able to like celebrate the love and the joy that she should be feeling for this little baby that's growing inside her tiny belly, she was dealing with the fact that her husband that she loved, the one that she loved enough to marry and create a life with, half her, half him, was unhappy to hear the news. And if that wasn't bad enough, this ends with Jennifer being murdered and her body thrown on the side of the highway like a piece of trash. And I just don't understand, man. I don't understand people. And I know we often ask in these types of cases specifically, like, why don't people just get a divorce? Why don't people just get a divorce? It seems preferable to murder, but yet we find ourselves telling these stories time and time again. And I'm kind of curious, why do you think this happens? Why do you think this couple did not get a divorce? And also, after hearing all the details of this case, I want you to let me know if you think this was premeditated or a crime of passion. Anyways, today I'm going to tell you the whole story, and while I do, I'm going to be putting on a full face of makeup. Now, if that's not really your thing, that's cool. Thanks for hanging out this long. I hope you find a channel that presents this case in a way that you prefer. But if you're on the fence, you're not sure how you feel, maybe stick around. You may be surprised by how much you like the format. And if it's not your thing, don't worry. I do both true crime and makeup and just true crime videos, so check back for another video that you might like more. I don't know. And now, with all of that said, please come gather around and let me tell you the story of the tragic murder of 28-year-old Jennifer Rothwell. Now, I want to start this video off by giving you guys a little bit of information about who Jennifer was as a person. If you've been here before, you know I like to do that. I did find that challenging in this case in particular because, like I said, there's not a ton of coverage on this case, but I was able to find a tribute page that was written by her family, so I was able to get a little bit of information from there, and I want to tell you about it now because obviously this woman, Jennifer, lived a life, right? She was a person. She had a whole full-fledged life that was cut short, and she's more than just her murder. So let's get into that first. Jennifer Rothwell was born Jennifer Von Hausen on November 20th, 1990 in Overland Park, Kansas, and she was born to parents Mark and Robin. Jennifer was the type of girl who was very friendly, and she made friends easily and had a lot of friends and a lot of people in her life who just absolutely loved her. When I looked online, again, there wasn't a ton of information, but I couldn't find a single mean thing said about her to anybody. No negative personality traits, nothing. She just sounded like a great person. She was the type of woman who loved traveling and spending time with her family, and she was the type of person who always went home to see her family on their birthdays or any holidays, where the family would just get together and they would sit around and play games. In addition to just being very pretty, Jennifer was also a very smart woman. She always got good grades while attending Park Hill High School in Kansas City, Missouri, and from there she went on to go to the University of Missouri, where she received her bachelor's degree, and from there she got a job as a process engineer for DuPont, which is a chemicals company. So it's safe to say that at this time her life was going pretty well. It was while attending the University of Missouri that Jennifer met a man named Bo Rothwell that she would go on to one day marry, which is why she ended up with the last name Rothwell. Bo Rothwell was a seemingly normal guy, an easygoing guy. He wasn't known to have a very strong personality. He was pretty chill, pretty even-tempered, a seemingly very normal dude. And at the time that Jennifer was murdered, Bo and her had been married for 4 years, and they had recently, super recently, but in the last couple of years, moved to the St. Louis, Missouri area, where they moved into a nice 4-bedroom home. I looked at the pictures because it's recently gone up for sale on Zillow, so I was looking at the pictures, and it's like a big house for 2 people, right? So that's why they were actively trying to fill this large home with children. Well, I can't say that the reason they were trying to have kids is because they had a big ass house, but they were actively trying to have kids at the time that she was killed, or in the time leading up to her being killed. The couple was known to be pretty friendly, pretty low-key. Neighbors who lived near them said they kind of just kept to themselves. They weren't really overtly friendly with the neighbors, but they weren't like the type of people that caused problems either, and things just seemed to be going really well for the couple. They were married, they had good jobs, they were both in engineering, they had this house, they were trying to have kids, and everything seemed to be going just exactly how you'd want it to. That was until a little over a week before Jennifer's 29th birthday, on November 12th, 2019, when Jennifer Rothwell was reported missing by her husband. On that day, November 12th, 2019, it started the way, or at least the story of that day started, like so many cases that we cover, and that was with Jennifer not showing up for her morning shift at her job at DuPont. And when Jennifer didn't show up on time, immediately her coworkers were like, that's weird, because it wasn't like Jennifer to no call, no show. She was a pretty reliable person. They thought that like it was possible that the bad weather was why Jennifer hadn't shown up yet, because I guess it was like November in Missouri. Why did Illinois pop into my brain? Don't know. It was November in Missouri, and like the weather there is not tight, you know? So they thought, okay, maybe something happened. Maybe there's a reason that she's not there. But as the time went on, they were like, this is definitely strange. So one of the coworkers actually took it upon themselves to text Jennifer's parents, which I thought was weird that they texted her parents and not her husband. I don't know the relationship there, but they texted her parents asking if Jennifer was okay. And truly, this is the kind of coworker I'd want, the type that's going to actually like text my husband, text my mother, text somebody and try to find out where I was, because I was at work, like at my old job, and one of my coworkers, his name was Peter, he didn't show up on a Monday morning, right? And Peter was the employee who was there first. So we're all supposed to get there at 8, but Peter was always there at like 7:30, 7:45, and then I would get there after him, and then people would start trickling in after me. And I got there and the lights were still off and Peter wasn't there, and I was like, that's really weird, because Peter's always here. That's like his thing. He's the early bird. He's always here. So I just kind of waited, because also he would always send an email or a text if he was going to be late. And as the time went by, he didn't show up and more people started to show up, and everybody's like, oh, where's Peter? And I was like, oh, I don't fucking know. Where is Peter? And as the time went on, he still never showed up. And I was like, should we text Peter's wife? Because this is so unlike Peter. And my office manager was like, don't bother Peter's wife, you know, like, and nobody did reach out to her. We texted Peter, got no response. Okay. But it turned out that Peter was actually just taking the Monday off, but he didn't like tell us. But the point is nobody reached out to his wife, and I wanted to, but then I didn't, and I should have. And that's why this is the type of coworker that I would like to have. But anyways, back to where we were. Anyways, after the coworkers reached out to the family and Beau, Jennifer's husband, connected, and this is when Beau let them know that he had last seen Jennifer that morning, Tuesday morning, at about just a little bit after 6 a.m. as she was leaving to head to the office. She was all dressed up in her business clothes, headed to the office, and I guess this was a little earlier than she would normally leave for the office, but since the weather was so bad, she wanted to leave early to make sure she had ample time to get there. And I assume that the mindset here was, okay, well, the weather is bad. Maybe she's just going to get there soon. I don't know exactly what the mindset was there, but all I do know is that they must have not been too worried immediately after talking to Beau, because nobody reported her missing for like several hours. I don't think she was reported missing till like 12 hours after she was last seen. So the 12th, busy day. Jennifer goes missing. Her husband, Beau, reports her missing. And right around that time as well, her car is found abandoned at a busy intersection just a couple miles away from their home. When the car was searched, it was still like totally intact. Nothing seemed to be wrong with it. It wasn't like not working. It wasn't unoperational. There wasn't like blood in it. It was just like left at this intersection. And her purse was gone. Jennifer was gone, but her cell phone was still inside the car. Police searched the area where her car was found extensively, dude. They searched open fields and nearby parks, the woods, even nearby creeks. They were looking at night with flashlights, and they even had the whole area taped off as a crime scene. Police then went to all the businesses in the surrounding area to try to recover any sort of like surveillance video that they may have had to show if Jennifer abandoned the car herself, or if, which is probably more likely here, somebody else had abandoned it after doing something to Jennifer. And they wanted to see if they could find who this person may be on camera. I didn't actually see anything reported on if they found any video from that particular intersection. I know they find surveillance video in this case in general, which we'll get into later, but I don't know if they found any near the intersection where her car was left. We're not coming back to that, so I thought I'd let you know that now. Meanwhile, Jennifer's husband, her family, all her friends are going around searching for her everywhere they can, asking people questions. They created missing persons flyers that they posted everywhere on like light poles, trees. They put them inside all the businesses in the surrounding area that would allow it. And the family was also offering a $25,000 reward for any information on what happened to her. Jennifer was described as 5 feet 6 inches tall, 150 pounds, with long, light brown curly hair, and she was last seen wearing business attire. Her family, at least her mother, was convinced right away that something bad had happened to Jennifer. Like immediately. They didn't think that she went off on her own. She was a happily married woman with nothing to run away from, and she was the type of person, which I think a lot of us can relate to this, but she was the type of person who always had her phone on her, and she talked to her friends and her family pretty much every day, all day throughout the day. So the idea that she would just like abandon her car with her cell phone in it just did not seem in her character. You know what I mean? Like she wasn't the type to run away. She had nothing to run away from. She was happily married. The couple's trying to have a baby. Like things are good. And she definitely isn't going to run away without her cell phone. So her mother believed that she had been taken, like that she had been kidnapped. The following day, Wednesday afternoon, Beau Rothwell took to Facebook, posting to all of his friends, letting them know what had happened to his wife. And he said, and I quote, "Some of you may have heard already, but last night my wife Jennifer went missing." End quote. He let his Facebook friends know that he had filed a missing persons report and that the police were actively looking for Jennifer, and he gave them his cell phone number and their police report number, seemingly hoping to bring up any leads as to where Jennifer may have gone. So, as I'm sure you can imagine, it rocked all of Beau and Jennifer's friends and family's worlds when the same day that he posted this now deleted Facebook message about his missing wife and his plea to find her, Beau Rothwell was arrested in connection with his wife's disappearance. So, what had happened is that Wednesday, the day after Jennifer went missing, the police headed to the couple's home, the nice big 4-bedroom home they were planning to fill with all those children, to search the home to see what information they could find that could hopefully give them a lead as to where Jennifer may have gone. You know, it's standard. A woman goes missing, you're going to search your house, right? And when they got into the house, they found some pretty damning evidence against Beau, particularly in the basement of the home. So as they entered the home, the first thing that they saw was that there was a lot of empty bottles of like different cleaners, which in and of itself isn't that strange, except for that it seemed like kind of excessive, right? It seemed like maybe this is a bit more cleaner than a person might need to be empty at the same time. But it's when you added it to the other things that they found where it seemed not tight for Beau, right? So they descend the stairs of the basement and they're hit in the face with the strong scent of bleach, which is never what you want to smell when looking into a missing person, right? A missing woman who was last seen by her husband. Now you're in their home and it smells like bleach. Not good. So they go down the stairs and they find that the carpet of the basement is still damp and there's a small oscillating fan going back and forth, like plugged in down there, to try to dry the carpet. In addition to that, there was a large pile of damp towels still found in the couple's laundry room that also smelled of cleaning supplies. And when the carpet was inspected further, it was found that what he was cleaning was a very large blood stain. So much blood had been on this carpet that it soaked all the way through the carpet down to the padding and the, what are those things called? I don't know what those things are. The thing that holds the padding in the carpet. All of it was like soaked all the way through, and it was described by investigators as, quote, saturated staining. So something bad had clearly happened in that basement and somebody had lost a lot of blood, and it was quickly determined that that somebody was Jennifer because the blood that was found in the basement was tested against her parents' DNA, and it was determined to be the blood of Jennifer Rothwell. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, remember how I told you that they were looking at surveillance cameras and that they did find some footage, but it wasn't from that intersection? Well, the footage they found was of Beau Rothwell on Monday. So the day before Jennifer was reported missing, the day before he said that he had last seen her leaving for work Tuesday morning, and he was seen on Monday night at a store buying gloves and cleaning supplies. The court documents on this case said that Beau had, quote, purchased and applied cleaning products to a large area of blood in effort to destroy or remove physical evidence with the purpose to impair its availability in an investigation into the murder of Jennifer Rothwell. So naturally Beau was arrested, and he was arrested on suspicion of first-degree murder, but he was actually arrested for tampering with physical evidence because they didn't actually have proof. They knew, right? They knew a murder took place, but they didn't have proof that a murder took place, and they definitely didn't have proof that it was a first-degree murder. How are they going to know that at that point? So they arrested him on the tampering of evidence because they could only hold him for like 24 hours, right? And they didn't want to chance him getting out. So like right before the deadline of the 24 hours, they arrested him for the tampering of evidence. And tampering of evidence, I don't know if it's everywhere, but at least here, there, where this took place in Missouri, it is a felony. Well, okay, no. So tampering with physical evidence, I don't believe is always a felony, but tampering of physical evidence in a felony case, like a murder, is considered a felony. I think it's like the lowest felony that you can have, right? And it's punishable by 4 years in prison or a $5,000 fine, I believe. Prison or jail. Probably prison because it's 4 years. Duh. And I want to read you what their definition of tampering with physical evidence is, just because I found it to be interesting and I wrote it down for you. So I'm going to read it real quick. A person commits the offense of tampering with physical evidence if he or she, 1, alters, destroys, or suppresses, or conceals any record, document, or thing with purpose to impair its verity, legibility, or availability in any official proceeding or investigation. 2, the offense of tampering with physical evidence is a Class A misdemeanor unless the person impairs or obstructs the prosecution or defense of a felony, in which case tampering with physical evidence is a Class E felony. So that's why it was like more serious that he did it in this particular case. Anyways, eventually, as more was found out, as they investigated further, he was additionally charged with second-degree murder, and he was held without bail per the request of the prosecution, and the judge agreed, so he was held without bail. Now, while being held in jail, the Monday after he was arrested, so the Monday after Jennifer went missing, Beau decided to tell police where they could recover Jennifer's body. And he didn't actually say it like that. He referred to her as it. He would tell them where they could find it. He didn't refer to her by name. He didn't even refer to her as a person. And I don't know. This is your pregnant wife. Like, it just seems really cold, but I mean, so is murdering her. So how much are you really going to expect from a person like this? And why did he decide to lead them to her body? I don't know. I don't know if it was an attack of conscience, because like that's the type of thing that I would hope would haunt somebody, or maybe it was a strategic move on behalf of his defense team. But either way, he that Monday told police where they could find Jennifer's remains. Police then headed to this 4-mile stretch of wooded area off the highway, where at about 11:30 p.m. that night, they discovered Jennifer's nude body about 20 yards off the shoulder, thrown on the ground like a piece of trash, dude. The officer who discovered her said that while he was, searching that area, all of a sudden he saw a, quote, pale object sticking out from beneath a pile of brush and shrubs. And as he got closer, he found that what he was seeing sticking out was 2 human feet. And he said, upon looking closer, like getting closer to Jennifer's body, he found that she had a black plastic bag duct taped around her head. Among the people who arrived at this crime scene that night was actually the county prosecutor, which I thought was kind of strange. I don't know if county prosecutors often go to murder scenes, but this particular one did. This was a man named Wesley Bell, and he said of his decision to be present at the murder scene, and I quote, "I think it's important that we be there. We're going to see things differently with respect to having to prove the case. We want to make sure that when tragedies happen, that all of the resources of St. Louis County law enforcement, including the prosecuting attorney's office, are there to make sure the case is handled correctly and justice is served." And apparently, from what I read, this particular prosecutor often went out to murder cases. Let me know if you know if that's very common. I don't know if I've actually read that specific, like looked into this specifically, so I'm just kind of curious. So Jennifer was found about an hour away from home, naked, curled up in the fetal position under a bunch of brush and shrubs. There was a black plastic bag duct taped around her head that had been ripped open by animals who were trying to get to her remains. And the officer who first came upon her said that the injury to her head, the depression, as he called it, was so severe that he could see it from several feet away. This was Bo Rothwell's pregnant wife. Bo Rothwell's defense attorney said of his client's admission as to where the body was, like his cooperation with the police at this point, he said of this, and I quote, "My client and I are working with the St. Louis County Police Department and the St. Louis County Prosecutor's Office to bring closure to this case and to all parties involved." And the prosecutor in this case said, and he wanted it to be clear that this was just an opinion that he had, but the prosecutor in this case believed that Bo Rothwell was a psychopath. What's weird about this particular case, which I think is kind of common in these sort of cases, is that there was like no history of domestic violence, no history of any issues, real issues between Bo and Jennifer. Like everything seemed to be perfectly fine to everybody who knew them. They had even, they spoke to this guy named Steve, who was a friend of Bo's. I think they played like racquetball together and they had known each other for several years. And he said that he had seen Bo just a couple of months before this happened and that everything seemed totally fine. Like nothing seemed odd. He had nothing bad to say about his wife, their marriage, like everything was a-okay. And he said that Bo just talked about like the two being good and them renovating their home. Like there was no sign that there was anything brewing that could lead to this. This man said, quote, "He was part of our group, and needless to say, we were really shocked when we heard his wife was missing." So a lot of details came out after Bo's arrest and the subsequent trial, and of those things was a motive. And there were two kind of main themes that were running throughout the trial as to why this happened. One was the pregnancy, and the second one was Bo's affair. So apparently, according to Bo, him and Jennifer had been trying to get pregnant since 2018. And after a bit of trying, they learned that Jennifer was suffering from endometriosis. And apparently about a third of women who suffer from that have trouble getting pregnant. So it makes sense that they were trying and failing at having a baby. He said that the two continued to try despite this up until about spring of 2019, so the year that she was murdered. And by that point, he says that to him, the whole task of trying to make a baby, the lovemaking, felt like a chore and that it lacked romance. It was just more like a mechanical thing. And I think that that's kind of like a common theme when people are trying and failing at getting pregnant, that it can feel like a job and not like a romantic expression of love. So he says at this point, the two had a conversation and they decided that they were gonna like slow it down, not try so hard, and just kind of like see what happened. It was around this time that Beau started having an affair. So at about May or June of 2019, a couple of months before Jennifer's murder. And as if, you know, the timing of this, the timing of everything here is just so crazy. So they stop trying. He starts having an affair in like May, June. And by September of 2019, Jennifer comes to Beau and lets him know that she is pregnant. And he's seemingly excited, at least that's how it seems to her. The couple have a conversation about setting up a nursery in their home. They talk about changing their insurance to cover a baby, like they're planning for it. And Beau said during testimony through tears, he talked about building Jennifer a like pregnancy calendar so that she could track the growth of her belly. In contrast to this, after learning Jennifer was pregnant, Beau being Beau, wrote his mistress saying of this pregnancy and the news of this pregnancy, and I quote, "I can't focus or do anything productive. I'm in panic mode. LOL. Jennifer took a pregnancy test and it came back positive." And though Beau was seemingly acting excited in some regards to his wife, I mean, talking about the nursery, setting up that like calendar to track her belly, clearly she knew that he wasn't happy, right? Because shortly after telling him that she was pregnant and shortly before she was murdered, she Googled from her phone what to do if your husband's upset that you were pregnant. And that to me just breaks my heart, because she had to know he wasn't excited, and she had to be going through that, the like emotions of being pregnant, which is already like so much. I mean, I just did it. If you don't know, like this video is the first one I'm actually filming after having my my baby. I don't know if it's the first one I'm uploading, but it's the first one that I'm filming. And when I picture like telling my husband and his excitement, and then I think about her telling Beau and him not being excited, it breaks my heart for her, because that must have been just so hard for her to go through. And why was Beau upset that his wife was pregnant? I mean, he'd been wanting this baby, right? They'd been trying, and it's because this selfish prick had just started having an affair, you know what I mean? Like, the timing of it all for him, like to try for years and not be successful, to finally give up, to start having an affair, and then boom, right after that, bam, pregnancy. Like, the timing must have been so hard for him. Like, all of this must have been terrible for Beau. Poor Beau. If you can't tell, I'm being sarcastic, because fuck this guy. It was presented at trial that Beau, prior to the murder, was trying to figure out how to navigate the situation that he had put himself in. And the situation was that he was having an affair while his wife was pregnant. And he had to figure out what he was going to do about it. And he made a list of pros and cons for ending the marriage with his pregnant wife. The wife who was pregnant with the baby that like he really wanted, that they were trying to have together. For his list of pros for leaving Jennifer, Beau wrote things like, quote, "Nicer, proven mother, better sex life, more respect, and fresh start." And some of those things make me so mad to read, because they're clearly about his mistress, like more respect and proven mother. The proven mother one really gets under my skin, because like, fuck you, how do you... Never mind, I'm just gonna... Because I'm gonna go on a tangent, and I mean, I think you get what I'm saying, so. For Beau's list of cons for leaving his wife, he wrote things like, quote, "Jennifer and her family have to move. Half my assets / money, possibly get another job, and my family's disappointment." So nothing about, you know, breaking the heart of the woman you love, or this little baby being in a broken family, but just some selfish shit for him, which he's gross, right? He's just gross. But you know, good reasons to stick around, I guess. This list was actually found at Beau's work. So I guess Beau worked for a company called Ambitech that was in the St. Louis area. And after Beau was arrested, his boss was like going through his office to get some paper and stuff because he was going to take over a project that Beau had been working on. And he found a notebook on probably I imagine on Beau's desk. Either way, he found a notebook, and inside he found this list. Can you imagine coming upon this list, especially knowing what Beau did, or knowing what he was suspected of doing? So his boss turned this list over to police because he's like, he or she, could be a lady, I don't know, I think it was a man. But either way, can you imagine? He's like, I think this could help you. That would just be so weird because it's the person that you work with and you see day in and day out. But either way, it was given over to police because it was presented at trial. And this list was dated June 2019, I believe. No, not June 2019. July 31st, 2019 is when this list was dated. And it also donned the question, quote, is the cost too high? So it seems like at this point, Beau was sort of waiting out his wife's pregnancy, kind of seeing how that whole situation worked, to see what he wanted to do with the situation he had put himself in. And he was discussing this in a Facebook message with his mistress, where he basically told her that he had 3 options at this point. One was to break things off with the mistress completely, have a clean break, never talk to her again. The next one was to divorce his wife right then and there. And the third one was to wait out the pregnancy to see if she, Jennifer, had, quote, had a miscarriage or something. And if that was to happen, then he would then leave his wife to be with his mistress. And the two of them decided that the third option was the best one, to wait and see if she had a miscarriage. And if she did, then, if she lost the baby, then he would leave Jennifer and go be with the mistress. He said to his mistress, quote, part of me wants this pregnancy not to work out. And when this information was presented at court, the prosecution basically said that what Beau meant when he said a miscarriage or something, was that Beau was going to murder his wife, effectively ending the pregnancy, and was going to stage it as a disappearance so that he could then go off and be with his mistress. When Beau was asked about this in trial, those 3 options that he had given his mistress, he said that the third option, the waiting to see what happened with the pregnancy, to see if there was a miscarriage or something, was just his way of killing time because he didn't want to make a decision yet. And he said that when he told his mistress that he was hoping that Jennifer would have a miscarriage, he was just lying. And there's such irony in this for me, and I actually sort of love the irony of this because it just shows how stupid this man was and how stupid this whole thing was. So he did all of this for this mistress, right? So he could be with this mistress. Well, this is the same mistress who, upon learning that Jennifer disappeared, went to police and presented police with all of the text message exchanges, all the Facebook message exchanges that she and Beau had had. So she effectively helped seal his fate. Idiot. People are just so dumb. And I just love that. I love, isn't it ironic? Don't you think? So I'm now going to tell you what Beau said happened the day that he murdered his wife. He said that he had been feeling very guilty and very anxious about his affair and about cheating on his pregnant wife, which, good. So he said that he had finally decided that he was going to tell Jennifer what had happened, and that he was just going to lay it all out there, tell her everything, and see what she said, what she wanted. He was hoping that he would stay with her, that she would keep him. Which I don't know if I believe that, but either way, that's what he said. And he said that he and Jennifer sat down at the kitchen table, and he told her the whole story, and that she got very upset, reasonably so, and that she demanded to know who his mistress was. Now, Beau says that he refused to tell Jennifer who his mistress was, which makes me wonder who it was, to be honest. If it was somebody that Jennifer knew. I did not find out who the mistress was. To be honest, I didn't look super hard into it because I didn't think it really like mattered. I didn't think it was incredibly relevant to the story. But I'm curious now that I think about it because I want to know if it was somebody she knew. But either way, he refused to tell her. And he said when he refused to tell her, she got increasingly upset. She got really mad, and she told him that he could, quote, keep his mystery, bitch. And he said that at this point, she told him that she too was having an affair and that the baby in her belly was not his. Now, did she say this? Maybe. I could definitely see a person who was as hurt as Jennifer was, a person learning that her husband was having an affair on her, after fucking prolonged attempt at having a baby, which is already like hard on a woman to try to conceive and be unable to, especially if you really want to be a mother. That's one of those things that, like, I think is one of the saddest things in the world, is if you want to be a mom and can't. That like breaks my heart. Anyway, to go through all that and then learn that your husband's having an affair and he won't even tell you the name of the person it is. I could see somebody that hurt wanting to hurt somebody in that way by saying that to them. But then again, we don't know if this is really what happened, because there are things that come out later that make it seem like what Beau's saying isn't totally truthful. But either way, this is what he's saying happened. But there was a paternity test done after the fact, and the baby that she was carrying was Beau's. So yeah, Beau killed his wife and his baby. Jennifer was 6 weeks pregnant at the time that she was killed. Beau says at this point, in her saying that the baby wasn't his, he went into a, quote, red haze. And he stood up and he picked up a mallet that he had out because he had been using it to hang like wall decorations because they were, you know, restoring their house. But he picked it up and then he smacked her in the head with it while she was still seated. He says at this point, Jennifer got up and tried to like run to the couple's attached garage, and that he caught up to her and the two got into a, quote, scuffle at the top of the basement stairs, where he then hit her again, the second blow, which effectively knocked her down the stairs. Beau said of this fight and this moment for him, and I quote, "In the heat of the moment, I hit her again. I think I cracked her skull and she fell down the stairs. I couldn't tell if she was deceased." Beau then went on to say that he never meant to kill his wife, that it was never his plan, and he said, quote, "All this happened in just moments." But don't just believe Beau on his word just yet, because the medical examiner's conclusion and the physical evidence at the scene didn't really line up with what Beau is claiming happened. The medical examiner said that the blow to Jennifer's head was likely caused by something a lot heavier and sturdier than a mallet, something more like a baseball bat, just because of the sheer force that was used to cause that injury. The prosecution also didn't believe that the initial attack began at the kitchen table when Jennifer was like seated, and that they eventually like ran to the basement stairs and scuffled and she rolled down the stairs. They didn't believe that this was true because most of the blood was found at the bottom of the basement stairs. So they actually believed that Jennifer had been in the basement and that she had been ambushed when she was killed. And man, if that's true, that's a totally different situation than the two having the conversation at the table and it just escalating. That would be him like hiding, lying in wait maybe, and then attacking her while she was down in the basement, which is a much scarier scenario. I mean, they're both fucked up, but that's just like, man. But again, that's just a theory based on the evidence, based on the prosecution's interpretation of the evidence, obviously. But anyways, let's go back to what Beau says happened. He said that once Jennifer went down the stairs, he freaked out and he ran down to try to see if she was okay, and that she was totally unresponsive. So at that point, he went into panic mode and decided that he needed to get rid of any evidence that any of this had happened because she was dead. So he says he then went to the store where he was seen purchasing the gloves and the cleaning supplies, and he went back to the house and set out to clean. And once he was satisfied that he had cleaned enough and he needed to like get rid of Jennifer's body, he then took Jennifer's body along with garbage bags filled with the cleaning supplies and a tarp, and he loaded them into the bed of his truck where he could then, you know, drive to eventually dispose of all of the people and things in his truck. Beau said that he then discarded Jennifer's body along Highway 61 between 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning on November 12th. And when Beau's truck was searched, there was blood evidence found in it that was matched to Jennifer. When asked why Beau had stripped his dead wife naked, he said that he had seen on some crime show that this would be effective at disposing of and hiding evidence. So that's why he did that. He said he then, after dropping Jennifer off, he went to a dumpster behind a business and he threw away the garbage bags containing the cleaning supplies and also the tarp that he had used to transport Jennifer before he went home and cleaned the house all night. He said after that he went and he dropped Jennifer's car off at that busy intersection, and the reason he left it where he did is so that it would seem like she had car trouble on her way to work. Beau said that he then sent himself text messages from Jennifer's phone to make it seem like she was still alive, and then later in the day texted her to make it seem like he was worried about her when she couldn't be located. And he said after he dropped off the car, he simply walked home and then decided that he should go to work that day to keep up the facade of normalcy. He said that that day he actually left work on his lunch break to go home and continue cleaning, and that later he went out with Jennifer's friends, her family, everyone who loved her, and looked for her, knowing he wouldn't find her, just to, again, make himself seem normal, like he was doing the normal thing that a husband who had not killed his wife would be doing. And that's just so heartless, man. Imagine looking into these people's faces, her parents, knowing that they're like fucking terrified about what happened to her, and you know what happened because you did it, and you're just like walking around with them trying to find her. It's so messed up. Not as messed up as killing her, but God. The defense tried to paint a picture that this was an accidental death. I believe they even tried to say that the fatal blow to Jennifer's head came from her falling down the stairs, not from him hitting her with the mallet, which, okay, sir, sure. The attorney tried their best to get the jury to acquit Beau of the first-degree murder charge and to simply find him guilty of abandoning her corpse. No big deal. Evidence tampering and voluntary manslaughter. He just tried to say that this wasn't premeditated, that Beau had simply lost his cool when during that fight Jennifer told Beau that that baby that they had been trying for so hard that Beau really wanted wasn't his. And his attorney said, and I quote, "The state is trying to turn this extramarital affair into some sort of motive or deliberation. There simply isn't any evidence that he ever planned to do it." For character witnesses of sorts, the defense called two of Beau's former co-workers / friends, and he had them both testify that Beau was a chill dude, an even-tempered dude. He didn't have any history of violence. He wasn't one to get angry, and to their knowledge, he had never had any sort of violent outbursts. You know, essentially trying to say that Beau just wasn't the type of guy who would plan to do something like this. But the prosecution essentially said that that was bullshit, that Beau's claim that he went into a, quote, red haze when he attacked his wife was a lie, and that the affair combined with, like, the brutality of the murder and the extensive cleanup spoke for itself. The prosecutor reminded the jury of the pathologist's testimony that the intensity of the second hit to Jennifer's head, the hit that would have killed her, couldn't have been accidental, because the severity of the damage to Jennifer's skull was similar to somebody being launched from a car during a high-speed crash and hitting the pavement, a person falling off a large building, or a person suffering a gunshot wound to the head. And it was said that Jennifer could have received as many as 3 hits to the head. So how would that be accidental? The prosecutor said, quote, "He deliberated when he got the weapon. He deliberated when he drew it back. He deliberated when he brought it down on her head. It was all part of his plan." After 3 days of testimony, the jury found 31-year-old Beau Rothwell guilty of the first-degree murder of his pregnant wife, Jennifer Rothwell. They also found him guilty of tampering with physical evidence and the abandonment of a corpse. His sentencing hearing is currently set for July 8th, and he faces life in prison without parole for his crimes. When the verdict was read, Beau Rothwell just sort of like hung his head inside, and members of Jennifer's family broke out in tears. As I'm sure you can imagine, this would be a very traumatizing situation to go through. And Beau said that what he did to his wife haunts him every day. To which I say, good. The prosecutor, Wesley Bell, the one who went to the crime scene that day, said of the crime and the sentencing, and I quote, "This is why we do this job. When we are able to bring justice to a family that has lost a loved one and lost her in such a brutal manner, there is no better feeling in the world. Hopefully Jennifer can rest at peace and her family can finally get closure. Justice was served." And that is currently where the case stands. He has his sentencing hearing July 8th, which is just a couple of weeks from when I'm uploading this. I'm filming it in May. I pre-film. I get things done. You know what I mean? I'm filming it in May. You guys should be watching it mid to the end of June. So I'm very curious to see how that plays out. I'm curious to see the victim impact statements because, as you guys know if you've been here, I like to learn about who these victims were. I like to see who they were to the people who loved them. And victim impact statements, though, fucking the hardest part of research for me is victim impact statements. That and 911 calls. I hate to hear people's pain when they lose somebody they love. But it is useful in learning who this person was to them and humanizing them, which is important if you're consuming this sort of information, this content. These are actual people, not just stories. They're not for entertainment. They're for, you know. I'm also curious to see what sentence he gets. I'm curious also to know what you guys think he deserves. Let's have that be one of the questions of the day. What sentence do you think he deserves? And as I asked in the beginning, I want to know, do you think this was premeditated or do you think it was an act of passion, a crime of passion in the heat of the moment? Let's discuss all that down below amongst each other. I see you guys talking to each other all the time, which I think is awesome. Because there's a community down there, right? It's a Brat Pack. Talk to each other. Let's see what you guys think. Everybody be nice. Let's talk down below about this case. But anyways, guys, that completes this video. I hope you found it interesting and informative, and it gave you all of the information you would want when looking into this case. And of course, thank you for remembering Jennifer Rothwell with me today and talking about her and her life and what happened to her. This case was very upsetting to me. Cases are always upsetting to me, and I think that maybe just because I've been pregnant now, it hits a little different and a little bit harder because I cannot imagine being in the position she was in. To be pregnant, she's 28, right? She's established in her life. She's finally gotten the thing that she wanted. She's been trying for over a year to get pregnant with a medical condition that makes it difficult to do so. To finally get pregnant, to finally tell your husband the good news that you guys have been waiting to hear, and to have him, one, not be excited about it, which is already like the most heartbreaking thing in the world, because my favorite moment of my life, besides like everything that's happened since my baby's been born, was telling my husband, because it's the sweetest moment that we've ever shared together. And when she told him, he wasn't excited, and that's horrifying. And then to hear that not only is he not excited, but he's also been having an affair, like that must have been just so devastating for her. And then after all that, for it to end with him literally murdering her, and killing her baby, because whether you think, this is a whole nother political thing, whether you think that once you conceive it's a baby or not, to her it was, right? And that's what matters. To her, this was a baby, this was a life, this is something that she wanted. So not only did he kill her, but when it's happening, she has to know that he's killing the baby that she had been wanting, and it's just like, it's really horrific. It's, what a dick, like what a horrible human being. I don't like him. But that's that. People really can be the worst. But anyways, please let me know down below any cases you would like to see me cover in the future. As you know, I have a long list of cases, and anytime you leave a suggestion, I add the case with your name next to it so I can give you a shout out if I cover it. I love looking into the cases that you guys suggest because oftentimes they're ones I haven't heard of and they're really interesting. I know that some of the ones I did during my maternity leave were subscriber suggestions, and some of the ones coming in the future are as well. And I would love to hear what you guys would like to hear. Of course, if you haven't already, don't forget to join the Brat Pack by subscribing and ringing that bell so we can hang out all the time. And if you want to hang out more consistently, you can check down below. It has all of my social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook page, all that jazz. And if you're ever curious as to what I'm using, all the makeup that I use is listed down below, the nail polish, earrings, all that'll be listed down below for your pleasure, along with a link to my merch store, because I made merch because you wanted some merch. So if you would like some merch, don't take a shot every time I said merch, or you may pass out. But anyways, guys, that's it. I hope that this video was good. This is my first one I've filmed since I've been back, so I may be a little bit rusty. And in the beginning of it, I was having an intense allergy attack, and I'm still healing up from a C-section, so I might seem a little different in energy. But thank you for hanging out. Thank you for being here when you could literally be anywhere else in the world. And I hope to see you in my next video. That's tight. You're tight. Yeah, I forgot my outro, but you know, you get it. You're awesome. This is awesome. I like hanging out. I'll see you on next Monday. Bye.